Welcome to Christian Soldier 99. And 1 in 4 pregnancies leads to a miscarriage.
So growing up, I never really put a number to how many kids was too many kids. I just knew I wanted to be a mother.
It's like clear as day, God said, stop. And so I stopped and he said, turn around. And I literally turned around, and the moment I turned around, the nurse was holding up a baby, just picked up a baby, a newborn baby, and was looking at it in such awe. And God said, I'm going to give you another child.
Heightened senses are a big sign that you're pregnant in early pregnancy. So I said, well, you would know better than me. You've got 4 kids. And so we got home, and the next morning I took a positive pregnancy test, and we were both just so ecstatic and over the moon. Again, it was maybe a month past our 1-year anniversary. And, you know, just doing the whole early nesting stage of just finding out that you're pregnant. And I was horribly craving fruit. So he had stopped on his way home from work and brought me back a fruit tray, and I had eaten like everything on that tray. I think the watermelon and the cherries were my favorite. But I just suddenly got nauseous and felt like I had to go to the bathroom or I was going to die. And I went back home and continued with my life. Well, about 3 days later, Thursday, July 22nd, I was in horrible, horrible pain. Thursday, July 22nd, I was in horrible, horrible pain. And I spent more than half of my day curled in the fetal position on the floor of my bathroom. And when my husband got home from work, I said, I can't do this. I need to go to the emergency room, which I was putting off because I worked there. And
we both worked. Yeah, we both worked there. And that's one of the rules. You don't go to your place of employment. You go to another hospital because you know everybody there. But we went and waited and waited and waited, and just 5 hours before she even got in a room. And
well, I think it was about 4 hours from the time we got there till the time they got us into a room. And I sent him home because he hadn't had dinner yet. And the kids were all home with my mom. So I said, you need to go be with the kids. I'll call you if, I said, I don't even know if we're going to, I had tried to send him home earlier, but he wouldn't leave until I was back in a room. So I said, I'll call you if anything happens, or whenever I even get to see a doctor. So another hour while I'm in the room passes, and all the nurses are joking with me because I'm throwing fits about them tapping me for the IV. I had been poked so many times throughout the week for just testing for my blood work and stuff to make sure that I was not dehydrated and stuff like that. And I said, this is they blew my vein, and they came over to this arm, and I said, this is your last try. If you can't get it, you're not putting an IV in me. And they were like, oh, you're such a wimp. You're so weak. You're such a pansy. All the jokes that the nursing staff tease each other with whenever they're
when they know you.
Yeah, when they know you. Anyway, so the doctor finally comes in, and so I explain all my symptoms, and I was every doctor's worst nightmare because I Googled my symptoms. And I said, listen, I didn't get any help at all from the last doctor I was at earlier this week. I said, I'm not going to lie. I Googled my symptoms. My biggest concern is if this is an ectopic pregnancy, because I have all those symptoms. And he said, that's my biggest concern too. I don't know why she didn't check for it. She should have. We're going to get you right back to ultrasound. So I called Billy, and I said, listen, I'm concerned that the doctor has the same concerns as what I told you earlier. I think that this is an ectopic pregnancy. They're going to take me back to the ultrasound, and I'd really appreciate it if you could try to come back. I said, because one of two things is going to happen. We're either going to get to see our baby for the first time, or we're going to find out our baby is dead, and I'm going to need surgery. I said, so if it's the former, I really want you to be here for the first time we get to see our baby. And if it's the latter, I'm really going to need you here for support. And so my mom just stayed, and he rushed back over, and we went back to the ultrasound. And usually after you've done something with radiology at the emergency room, they have to send it over to a radiologist to get it read.
Well, let's back up a little bit, because this is a part that I knew the radiologist, or not the radiologist, but the tech. and she was having a lot of pain when they was putting the wand up there, and she just got quiet, and then you could just, I don't know. And when she pulled it out, it was covered with blood. You remember that? Mm. And I was like, oh my word. And she goes,
I wasn't going to go into that much.
Well, this is real. I mean, this is real.
But some people get grossed out easily.
I know, but she pulled it out and it was covered with blood, and we're like, what? And she goes, well, that's because of all the stuff that's happening.
I said, is that normal? And she said, I think it has to do with what's going on with you.
Yeah.
So we went back to the room, and usually they have to send it out at nighttime like that to get read by a radiologist because they don't have someone on staff in the emergency room to read those. And in the evening like that, as late as we were there, it was like 9 p.m. at that time, it takes them several hours to get any information back. So we thought we were going to have to sit there when the doctor comes back in. Again, we both worked there, so we both knew this doctor. And he says, we're not even going to wait for a radiologist. We can tell that you have had an ectopic pregnancy and it has ruptured, and we need to get you into an operating room right away because you could die. And he was very straightforward and very blunt, but he pulled up a chair and he sat down next to us, and Billy was standing on my left side up here by my shoulder, and the doctor was sitting down here by my legs, and he just put his hand on my knee and just sat there with us in silence. And I mean, it felt like forever, but it was probably like 2 or 3 minutes. He was just giving us time to process, and I've never experienced someone give me that much peace through silence, but it was the most supportive I've ever felt around somebody else.
And it's really interesting because I didn't even know till here recently that he even had his hands on her at all. And because I had another video and I just talk about how he just sat there and waited, but here he was comforting her. You know, it's called, you know, by touch. And he was just there and quiet and just, you know, comforting her. And so it's just, I don't know, he just did everything right without doing anything at all. It was just...
So, I mean, like I said, it felt like forever, but it was probably like 2 or 3 minutes. And then he stood up and he said, I've already assembled the OR team. They're going to be coming in to get you because we need to get a move on this because you could literally die at any point. We don't know when the rupture occurred. We don't know how bad it is until we get in there. And he had already contacted the on-call OB surgeon.
Yeah.
And
well, it's difficult too because we knew everybody. And here you are, you're going through this most horrible time. And it's just...
But at the same time,
yeah.
with the kind of personality I have, I know a lot of people wouldn't appreciate this, but I did. But some of the young ladies that I was friends with came in to reassure me that they were going to be there for me and they were going to be praying for me. And one of my friends even opened up to me that she had had a pregnancy loss, that I didn't know she had. And she said, I've been through something, not this drastic, but I've been through something similar, and if you ever need to talk, I'm here for you. And I mean, a lot of people wouldn't appreciate the invasion of their privacy, but I'm not that kind of person. I don't believe in privacy. So I just... It was a horrible situation to go through, but at the same time it was beautiful because of the amount of support that came out of it. So I went into the operating room and I said, I have a couple questions I want to ask before we do this. And I said, shoot. I said, my husband's going to sit in this waiting room to wait to find out if his wife is going to survive this or not. How long are you expecting this surgery to last? And they said it depends on how bad it is. It can go anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour. I said, can somebody let him know that it could be up to an hour before he hears anything? Because he's going to be in there worried. And they said, sure, we'll let him know. And then our pastor and did Maggie show up too, or was it just Jason? No, our pastor and his wife both came in, and but after everything was said and done, I felt bad because I had him texting all of the family to update everybody. But nobody bothered to tell my mom.
Yeah.
Because she was home with the kids.
She was home with the kids.
And we didn't think anything of it.
And we were calling everybody else.
So my poor mother sat there all night, not knowing what was going on with her baby girl, not knowing what was happening. And Didn't even really find out until the next morning what all went down. But so I was on the operating table for over 2 hours, for a surgery that should have only taken about an hour. And the Dr. Glass was the on-call surgeon, and she just happens to be the best OB surgeon that falls under the umbrella of
they even said that. You can be
hospital.
glad you have this person on tonight. It was just amazing.
She saved my life. Well, God saved my life. But
through her.
She fixed me. She said in the 20 plus years she's been doing OB surgeries, she had never seen an ectopic rupture that bad. My entire fallopian tube, they weren't sure if they were going to be able to salvage my ovary or not, but once they got in there and looked at everything, there was no damage to either my uterus or my ovary. It was all just contained within the fallopian tube, which they said in and of itself was unusual. Of course, they can't use the word miracle. They're medical people. But that in itself was a miracle. But the biggest thing that she couldn't get over was that as much damage as was done to that fallopian tube, there was a blood clot literally the size of my fist that got lodged in just the right position to staunch the blood flow. And I had a liter of blood in my abdomen, and they didn't have to give me a drop of blood in transfusion during the surgery. And none of that made sense to them. They were prepared to have to fill me back up. And they thought I was bleeding out more or less, and it was just amazing the whole way around. They told me later on that they had a meeting they pulled in all the OBs in the region, all the midwives and all the OBs from the region that fell under the umbrella of the Summit Health, to have a big meeting on my surgery because they hadn't seen anything that drastic.
And just talk about everything that happened prior and there and all this.
So that was our first pregnancy experience, and it was horrible. It's never easy to go through a pregnancy loss, regardless of what form it comes in. But when you almost die on top of it, it makes it just that much more traumatic. So not only are we mourning the loss of our baby, but we're also struggling to get me back on my feet